Welcome to the Antisocial Podcast. I think I've been saying this for the past few episodes, but I always say, "Oh, this is an interesting episode," or "This one's a bit different." And I have to say the same again. This episode is a different episode in the sense that we've done a bit of a swap cast. I met up with Kurt, who is the host of Kembla, funnily enough, based in Port Kembla. And we met up at the Commercial Hotel in Port Kembla and spent an hour and a half or however long shooting the shit about podcasts and life and everything in between. And what we've done just to make things easy, because originally we were just going to record 2 episodes and feature on each other's podcasts, but we figured, well, let's not waste any time here and just record 1 episode. So this episode is going to appear on Kembla. You can search for Kembla via Facebook. I'm going to have links to Kurt's show via andysocial.net, so you can find it on there, but it's extremely easy to find, and he's on iTunes and Stitcher and I think a couple of other places, SoundCloud as well. The episode itself will be also featured on Kembla, obviously with a different intro. Won't be me giving the introduction on his particular show, but I really hope you enjoy this one. I think the big thing out of this, and it's really cool, is that I hope it inspires other people to create their own podcasts. It's such an easy thing to do. It does take a little bit of work to get your head around the equipment and recording it and how it's going to be hosted and uploaded and all that. But once you get past those initial stages, and as I explain in this episode, you know, I outsourced a lot of this shit. I haven't got the attention span. I've got the attention span of a goldfish at times. So I had a lot of people just help me out, and you know, that means that pretty much anybody can do it if you get the right help. So once you're up and running, it's such an easy thing to do. It's such a rewarding and fun thing to do. It's not for everybody, but for anybody out there that might have a particular passion or niche interest, or just want to ramble for the sake of rambling, podcasts are definitely a great outlet for anybody that might have something to say or not say at all. So anyway, enjoy this one. This is really cool. We're at the Commercial Hotel, so you're going to hear a little bit of background noise and a bit of ambience. But yeah, it's a really fun episode, so I hope you enjoy it, and we'll chat soon.
Well, this is I'm going to call this a swap cast, because I was just asking you about podcasting
Yes.
and all of that, and Doug Stanhope and Bert's Crusher, they did a swap cast a few months ago when Doug Stanhope's missus left him and she was on the lam for a while. But Andy Dowling.
Yes,
I call you Andy Social.
Call me Andy Social. That's right. Yeah.
I was just before I left, I was saying to Louise, I'm like, well, I'm going to see Andy Social now. You guys okay? Everything good? And she's like, stop freaking out. So
don't worry, that was like me yesterday. I did an interview. I hate using the word interview as well, because I'm trying not to use that when I talk about podcasts. It's all conversation. But anyway, I had one yesterday, and it was a director for an organisation in Melbourne called School of Life, and it's this really cool thing that they've got set up, and it started in the UK. And anyway, I won't get into that, but
sounds awesome. I look forward to listening to that episode.
Yeah, coming soon.
Yeah.
But I spent 3 hours leading up to it having mild panic attacks, stressing about what the hell I'm going to say, what we're going to talk about. And I'd written notes out ages ago. And I think the reason why I was so stressed about that was we'd tried about 2 or 3 times to make it happen. And then right at the final minute, one of us had to cancel for various reasons. So it was finally happening. And I think I was anxious because of that. But I'm sitting there going, about 5 minutes before we're about to kick off, and I'm about to call him, and I'm going, what the fuck is wrong with me? What am I doing? Like, what's going on? This is just ridiculous. And then I started beating myself up because I was all anxious and stressed out, and it was just, and so the episode itself, which I'm hoping that I can clean up a bit, is just me dribbling through the whole thing. And he's quite astute. He's very articulate, and he's got his head switched on. He's the director of this great company, and they're doing so many things. And here's me, like this long-haired git sitting down the south coast, talking into this little microphone, trying to have an intellectual conversation, and then finding myself mid-sentence losing my train of thought and not even knowing what the next word in the sentence is going to be, and just going around in circles and circles, and without even finishing the sentence going, what the fuck am I doing here? I'm a fraud. This is ridiculous.
You've basically described my last 24 hours, man. Seriously. So I recorded one last night, but then I woke up this morning and, I'd watched have you heard of the show Silicon Valley?
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it though.
Well, yeah, it's about computer programmers and all of that. So I woke up going, maybe I should be a computer programmer. And then I'm like, why am I thinking about this? I think I'm thinking about this to distract myself that I'm going to, meet Andy down at the Commercial Hotel in Port Kembla.
Yeah, plug.
There's all kinds of interesting characters down here. So come and check it out.
I have to make a comment on this area. I said it before. This is like another world.
Yeah.
When they talk about the industrial parts of Britain where it's just rough as guts, like it's an unforgiving area.
Yeah.
When I drove down this street, I just went, wow, I'm in another world. And I've driven around this area for years and years, but I've just never turned left.
Yeah.
As weird as it sounds, and I just didn't even know this part existed.
Well, this place is synonymous. Well, at one point, very synonymous with prostitution and stuff as well.
Right. Huh.
When it was really hitting the skids, I think in the 90s.
Hitting the skids, yeah.
Yeah, basically, and it was. There's a lot of just sort of shady activity going on here. It's kind of cleaned up quite a bit. Like this place is modern to an extent, but yeah, we're sitting here on a Saturday afternoon and we're the only ones in this room. There's a couple of pool tables there.
Yeah.
Last time I was here, I think I was here with a friend of mine and we were here for a pool competition and they actually have a topless waitress here while doing that. And yeah, I didn't go any good at pool because I've got no decent hand-eye coordination.
It's hard when the eye's distracted anyway. So
exactly. You're sort of walking around, but you also feel like a complete scumbag. Like she's obviously there. She's like, look, I'm getting paid fairly decent money for this. So I don't really care about your feelings right now. But I'm just like, I'm kind of a seedy character here. And you look around at the people that turn up to it, and you're just like, oh, what are you guys' lives like when you're not here? It's rather interesting.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I look like I've pissed my pants right now because I spilt a part of my beer on me as you were talking just before. So,
oh, really? Well, I didn't even notice. So the fact that you brought it up now, well
I make it awkward. That's what I do. Well, yeah, man. I don't know. Like, I feel like I don't want to just be trying to take over the whole thing because this is as I said before, a swap cast. So this will be on your stream and as well as mine.
It will.
But yeah, I got familiar with you, like not through your music, but through your podcast. I found it extremely inspiring. Because when did you decide to start a podcast? It's not that long ago, was it?
No. So I've been doing the music thing for over 10 years, and it's only just been the last probably 18 months, 2 years where I even discovered what a podcast was. Actually, podcast for me, the word I just always associated with the ABC.
Yep.
And they always used to say when you watch like a program and say, oh, and so the podcast is available on ABC Online or whatever. And I go, well, that sounds a bit boring.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just always associate the ABC as being boring.
It's a dorky name, podcast too.
Yeah, that's right. So over the years growing up, and I think in the early 2000s when they started doing that a little bit online, I just always associated with something that just did not interest me whatsoever, so I didn't bother looking into it. But the whole Joe Rogan thing came out of nowhere, and I think a friend of mine recommended a particular episode. I can't even remember who he had on at the time, but I actually downloaded the MP3 onto my laptop and then put it onto my phone. So I didn't even do
convoluted.
I didn't even do the podcast stream or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I was just blown away. It was like a 3-hour conversation and time just got away from me and I wasn't looking at the time. And I was just surprised that I could stay engaged for that long. And I'm so used to, especially being in music where we're always conscious of the length of the song. And when we do go above the usual attention span, we do like a 9-minute or a 10-minute, or we just released a song about a year or so ago that goes for 24 minutes and it's just this ridiculous thing. But you always worry about the attention span of the listener, and especially in the digital age where people sort of within 30 seconds of a song go skip, or delete. So for this whole medium of podcasting was such a foreign thing, but it was refreshing, and I went, wow, I've discovered this whole new world. So then I just started downloading heaps of episodes, and then off the back of Rogan, I found all these other different shows, and probably about 6 months later, I started thinking about, well, this talking thing sounds pretty easy.
Yeah, exactly.
It sounds easier than trying
and you're very good at it as well.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah.
We've only met in person this last, half an hour, 45 minutes, and we've not really, either of us have really shut up. So to me, that's a good sign.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And look, for me, I mean, creating music, I've got a short attention span, and if something doesn't come out instantly, then I disregard it. I don't work on things, and it's a bad habit of mine.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I've always found, especially when there's alcohol involved, I can't shut up at all, and for good and bad reasons. But so I figured, this is going to be a good way to channel all that energy and put it into something that might actually serve a purpose, even if it's just to entertain myself. And but it took me another 12 months before I actually properly put something out. It was just, I stressed over it. I was wondering about, the quality of it, and trying to work out a format and then how that would look, and then images, and I over-analysed it for ages, and eventually someone just said, just record something and put it out. Just put it out straight away. And so I just did, and I didn't worry about it too much, and I still don't worry about it too much. And at times I listen back when I'm sort of writing out some notes from the show or whatnot, and I go, oh, Andy, shut up. You just shut up. Like, you could have ended that sentence about 3 minutes ago, but you're still rambling. Let that person speak. Yeah. But it's cool. Like, it's raw, it's organic, and it seems to be working really well, and people are enjoying it. And I'm just trying not to overanalyze it too much and just roll with it.
Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Because, I came across you because when I'm on, like, I try not to be on Facebook too much, but when I'm on Facebook, they have the suggested posts.
Yep.
So anytime there's like a podcast suggested post, I'll click on it and be like, oh, maybe they're from around here, and I'm kind of missing out on, like a local thing that's happening. And that's how I came across I think
that's how I discovered you, because I saw Pod Kembla liked my post, and I laughed so hard. I went, Pod Kembla, that's so witty. And then and obviously put two and two together. That was from Port Kembla, and then decided to actually check out the podcast. So that one click. Well, I'm hoping
that's what gets other people onto it as well, because it is fun. Like, I've been doing it on and off for like 3 or 4 years. Like, it started out as a couple of different iterations, and I've been trying a few different things. Like, I noticed when you've got quite a Rolodex of people that you're able to tap into and be able to talk to. Do you find a lot of the people are just be like, yeah, cool, let's try it out, or you get a lot of rejection from it? Or
it's interesting, because one of the things that I thought about when I did it was I didn't want it to be a music podcast. And the difficult thing was, for at least the last 10, 15 years of my life, that's been my entire world.
Yeah.
And everyone I know, and the relationships and the networking, everything I've built over that time has just been music. But I know a lot of other people that do music-themed podcasts, and there seems to be enough of them out there. There probably isn't, but a lot of guys use that platform to play music. And I think if I wanted to do that, then I could probably just plug into Spotify, or I could listen to digital radio, or just YouTube, or whatever it might be. So, and then there's other guys out there who do it, who are very much band interviews, and it's stock standard of a Q&A style thing where, hey, tell me about the new album. How is this album compared to the last album? And you're going on tour. Tell us about that. Where are you going? Like,
any crazy stories?
From the
tour
road
life.
Yeah. And it's interesting, and I think a lot of people that are, I think from a punter point of view, probably find it interesting to hear about bands that they enjoy and get a little bit more of a candid conversation, even if it's just a Q&A style thing. But for me, it's just, I guess, being on the receiving end of that for quite a few years of doing email interviews and doing phone interviews and the same sort of questions over and over, I even found myself going into the scripted answers, because I just knew what the next thing was going to be, and I knew what I needed to say to get the information out. So I was worried that listeners may go, oh, well, he's going to do one of those type of things, and he's going to do the Q&A, and I'm only going to get a certain amount of people that are going to listen to it, and everyone else is going to go, well, if I want to hear about that band, then I'll just read about it online, or there'll be another 30 odd interviews that person's going to do on the same day on their press.
And it'll have the same
day.
information.
Information.
Yeah.
So that was a big challenge for me. So what I did was I've got a notebook that I just put everything into, and I had lists and lists of people, and a lot of them were musicians, but I started then going back and looking at the musicians and trying to find something that they do that isn't music related. So one of the first guys, which was just an easy thing for me, was one of my best mates. He's a primary school teacher, but also drums in about 3 or 4 bands, and he's really active. He tours.
I'm pretty sure I've listened to that one.
Yeah, it's like my first proper episode anyway. Yeah. And that's Andrew Craig, and yeah, and so for me, it was like talking about the bands and everything that he does, but then talking a little bit about him and how he balances playing in a metal band and being a primary school teacher, and how the two worlds collide, and whether the people that he works with in the school environment know that he plays in a metal band, and what are the things that he's learned about being a primary school teacher that work as him being a drummer and he's a tour manager and a band manager and whatnot as well. So where do the skills sort of transcend across both things, both worlds, that when on the surface wouldn't match up whatsoever? So that sort of got me going long term to think, well, everyone I get on, I need to sort of look a bit more outside the box of what they're known for. So, you know, someone might be known for one particular thing, but what can I find that's a little bit different? But without doing the Q&A, that's the hard thing.
Oh, look, and you do it really well. Like the episodes that I've enjoyed the most are when you are like, I enjoy hearing about the music side of stuff too, because I'm not a musician and I don't really know the first thing about what that kind of life is like.
Neither am I. I just play bass, so it's not easy. I've said it. I think I admitted it in one episode just recently. I just said I'm a fraud. I've just winged it and just flew under the radar. But anyway, sorry.
That nobody gets anywhere without a rhythm section, man. Give yourself a bit more credit there. But I find the stuff when you are talking about people's lives, there was the guy that has written sort of technical manual books. I can't quite remember the
quantum computing.
Yeah, that one. I was blown away by that, because when I'd hang around at the Oxford Tavern years ago, and you'd see these people that were all into their music and all that kind of stuff, and they were playing in bands. I didn't imagine that they had serious jobs or anything like that. And you find that there's quite a few that they're just like very highly motivated people, and they've got their different ways in which to channel all this motivation and drive that they have in different areas.
I think another thing that I've tried to do, originally subconsciously, but that over time I've been a bit more conscious of it, is that there's the stereotype of the musician being the guy without a job, gets his Centrelink check each week, and he's just doing it for the love of music, and he's out there, he's a long-haired git, he's got no responsibilities and whatnot. And there are dudes out there that will relish on that, and it's the old Guns N' Roses style where you sleep on a mattress in the corner of a room in a share house, and you drink a bottle of JD straight, and you
get on the heroin and all that kind of shit.
You're eating 2-minute noodles, and you're just doing whatever it takes to be big. And there's that romantic view of it all, but the reality is that majority of people don't do that. They can't afford to do it, and people want to have a balance between trying to pursue something that's creative and unique and whatnot, and through the arts, but they realize that they've got to be able to funnel that through some responsibility of
paying the bills,
keeping
the roof over their head.
And a lot of them have been able to find that passion through a whole range of different things as well, and have purpose in other areas that break the stereotypes, because it's a lot better than what it used to be. But even we're the same generation coming out of high school, and it's all about, I went through the challenges with my parents. I said, I want to be a rock star. And they just laughed at me and said, you need to probably go to university, or you need to get a job, and you need to settle down and get some stability. And it was never taken seriously. And then next thing, I've moved to Sydney from Brisbane, and I started playing in a band and touring internationally and whatever. My parents went,
it's possible.
There is something happening here.
Our son is a rock star. All right.
But I think now that when I do get musicians on, and I try to balance it out with other people also, but I try to move away from the typical music related questions and find something that's just a little bit different, and get an understanding that there's more to the person than just this rebellious face that people see, and the stereotypes that surround a musician.
Yeah, amazing. Oh, look, and they're the parts of like those that I enjoy the most. I think like when I was listening to the episode that you had with the guy from Heaven the Axe, and I'd never heard of that band before, so I ended up looking them up and seeing what they were all about. I just find it fascinating when knowing what people's day jobs are, to be able to sort of maintain the thing, because you look people up on Facebook and you see their band and they've got like thousands of likes and all of that. You're like, oh well, they must be doing that full time. And the reality of it is like, they're working very hard to get things happening on that front, it's it's a gigantic world out there, and
it is.
You need to sort of everybody has their responsibilities.
And I think a lot of musicians probably will do their best to not talk about their day jobs because they don't want people to know the realities. I think a lot of people, it's changing a lot more now, and I think people calm down a bit about it, but there's always been this stress about wanting people to think that you're bigger than what you are. So, the Facebook likes, or back in the day, MySpace and whatever it might be. You want to be seen as a successful musician, and you're doing it full time, and you're earning a lot of money. You're living a life in a lifestyle, and it's like people on Instagram that always post like the most amazing pictures of them at the beach and on location, and they're putting up a picture at like 11 o'clock on a Monday morning at the beach, and you go,
I fucking hate you.
Yeah, what the hell are you doing? Like, how can you afford to be at the beach? But mind you, they're probably sitting on the toilet at work, and that picture they took 24 hours earlier on the weekend, but they're trying their best to visualize or demonstrate to everybody else that they're living a particular life that might not be the reality. So,
look, I like the mystery being broken down a little bit. Like, I guess maybe that's because I'm someone who does work, like, on a 9 to 5, and it's just like, they're just like me in a way, but they've got a few more little extra talents. But I don't know. I just think a lot of people just respond to realness, not to try and sound like Kanye. Did you see that 7-minute rant?
No.
It's amazing.
I know you're a Kanye fan.
Oh my God. When I heard about it, I was like, I've avoided it. Like I was saying, I try and stay off Facebook a little bit, and with this new job that I'm in, I just don't have a chance to be checking it all day, every day. But I was working my other job where I'm at a computer for some of the day, and I have seen the trending thing. It was like, Kanye 7-minute rant. I'm like, oh, okay, they're picking on him again. He brings it upon himself. And my wife, Louise, she mentioned it to me last night, like after I'd been done recording with some other people. And I'm like, you know what, I'm going to put it on. So I've, opened up the PlayStation and got the YouTube thing going, or Ellen Tube, because it was on Ellen. And it's this 7-minute rant of how he wants to eradicate bullying by giving everybody affordable, fresh clothing.
Oh, okay. Because that's the reason.
Yeah. And at the end of it, he's just like, I'm sorry, Ellen audience. I'm sorry for the realness. And he's a character. He's a caricature.
From what I can see, and I don't know, I only see when he said something ridiculous and it gets into the press. Yeah. And I probably wouldn't pay much attention otherwise. But I think part of me is, I don't know who mentioned it. It might have even been Rogan or Trussell, possibly, that said, I think he's been quite strategic, and in some instances he's actually deliberately saying something that's a bit crazy. Yeah, he's an instigator. Because he's timing things just before a release of something as well. So I think when whatever his last release was, he said something really controversial or crazy. I can't remember what it was, but it was just perfect timing that his face and his brand and everything was all in the media across everything you could possibly see. It was trending topics. Yep. And then, the next day his new album's out. Funny that. Yeah. So the guy
exclusively on Tidal.
Yeah, that's right. And for a guy that's just he says the most ridiculous things, and everyone, and a lot of people hate him. He's a smart guy. Oh, and
he's brilliant.
He's not short of a buck.
He's brilliant. He comes off like a dickhead quite a bit, and but I've been following his career for like close to 15 years, because I was a Jay-Z fan initially, and I'd always go through the album liner notes and see, produced by Just Blaze, produced by Kanye West, and then I used to get the Source magazine, which is like this hip hop magazine, and XXL and all that kind of bullshit.
You usually have like DMX on the front with his shirt off,
covered in blood, being all like throwing up gang signs. It's another troubled soul, that guy. But then there was all this talk about, this Kanye West, the producer, wanting to become a rapper. And that was in like 2002 or 2003. Yep. So I actually wagged uni, which you can't really wag uni, but I didn't show up to uni one day to buy his first album, The College Dropout. And
that's so thug life.
Yeah, well, it's telling. I wasn't at uni for long, so I took his advice a little bit too seriously, But But yeah, I'm unapologetically a fan of that guy. He's a great man.
I'm impressed and extremely happy and flattered that we were able to get a Kanye reference into the episode, because I have noticed them pop up in previous episodes of Pod Kembla.
It happens quite a bit.
And I like this running theme that every once in a while, every few episodes, there's a little Kanye.
Yeah, or Kid Rock.
Kid Rock, yeah. I noticed the Kid Rock one as well.
Yeah, well, the thing with that guy is he was basically, because I'm a fan of hip hop, and I got into hip hop through the stereotypical white channels of it, where you like your Eminems and your Kid Rocks, and it was actually Kid Rock first, and Eminem was on that album. I used to listen to that Kid Rock album in maths very loudly in headphones, and people wouldn't be very happy about it. But I was also like,
what was the big song that sort of brought him? Because he's been around for decades, hasn't he?
Yeah.
But when he sort of had that resurgence,
I think it was that Cowboy song.
Was it Cowboy?
Yeah, Cowboy, and this other song, I can't really pronounce the name of the song. It's called Badiba or something. It's just him basically shouting gibberish at the chorus.
There was one that had a really heavy guitar riff, and I think that's why I heard about it, because there's guys at school that I was friends with, and one guy was just this massive Kid Rock fan, but there was this one song that had this really
kindred spirit of mine.
And he had the guitar riff was like this really simple thing, but we were always like at the time we were all just starting to learn guitar, but it was this really sort of heavy riff. I can't remember the song, but that was like the big song, and I think Cowboy came out a little bit afterwards. It might have been that song that you mentioned. I don't know, but
I don't even know if I'm pronouncing the name of the song right, because it's spelt really weirdly. But it's just basically him spitting kind of gibberish as the chorus. I think it might even be him interpolating Rapper's Delight or something like that.
Okay.
Because like you say, he has got like a history in the whole the hip hop scene and all of that. But he went country because
well, there's the money.
Republicans like to buy CDs still apparently. So yeah. But hey, look, it's one of those things. I'm glad I got another one of those references in as well.
There you go. Yeah, great. We've ticked the 2 boxes there.
Yeah. Well, yeah. What do you think about Port Kembla, man? Would you come back? Do you think?
Oh, I'll come back for a visit. Yeah. Like I don't know if I'd live here, but I did when I got here. And you did message me the other day to say there's a car park out the back of the hotel. But when I drove around the back, I went, there's a bigger car park across the road.
Yeah.
And so I pulled in there, and there was this big coaster bus with curtains all draped down the side, and there was a dog on the other side chained up, and it looked like pedophile's van. And I thought, I'm just gonna, and I pulled in because this is how ridiculous I am. Instead of just going, I'm just going to do a U-turn and go back out, I pulled into a car spot, stopped there for a moment, and just pretended that I was serving a purpose sitting in the car for a moment, and then reversed out and then drove out to make it look less obvious. Like the person, I didn't even see a person in the bus, but I thought maybe they're peeking through the curtains at me, like it'd matter. So anyway, I drove back across the road, but it definitely seems like a very, I mean, geez, you got the steelworks and everything here. It's an industrial area.
It's got the rustic charm. It does, but it's as you go further coast side, there's some really, really expensive kind of properties because you're right on the water there, and Port Kembla Beach is actually one of the premier beaches on the Illawarra. It's a really nice beach. It's just long and sprawling and fairly flat.
You can drive south along the coastline and go into Shell Harbour from here. Because usually what I would do is I'd just be going down the highway, the freeway down.
Miss it all.
I miss it all. So as I said to you earlier, Tim in our band lives in Cringilla. So if anything, if I was driving in this area, I'd just be driving down Five Islands Road or whatever it is, and I would never veer left, and I'd keep going and then back onto the highway, and that's it. So when you're giving me the directions of where we're going to be today, and I suddenly went, I've got to turn left. Is there even more land here? I thought the water was just over there. There's the steelworks, and then it's like, there's like a couple of pubs here, and
it's a whole new world.
It is a whole new world.
There's actually 3 pubs. Well, there was 4. There was the RSL just around the corner, but that closed down.
Oh, so that's closed?
Yep. Yeah. And then also at the top is the Steelworks Hotel.
I saw that one. Yep.
And that was It's actually a shame that that's closed down, because it would have been nice to meet there, because they've got like a really nice beer garden and tables out there that we could have just sat at, and I could have smoked to my heart's content. But instead we're at the Tuesday night titty bar, but that's all right. It's good.
And is there another pub across the road?
Yeah, that's the Port Kembla Hotel.
Yeah.
Or it's affectionately known as Ginnery's.
Ginnery's, okay.
Yeah,
right.
I was down here a few weeks ago. It seems to be a fairly popular place for bikers to meet.
Oh yeah.
I was down here maybe a month, 6 weeks ago, and I was walking little Lenny along in the pram, and they had Harleys and all that kind of shit just parked all the way along Wentworth Street.
Yeah, right. Wow.
Yeah. So
it reminds me of what potentially, like in a lot of areas that have been done up now, and you can see, I mean, the old rustic, organic, even for a lack of a better word, the hipster sort of revolution that's come through, where we sort of update a lot of these older areas and make them a bit more sort of a bit more trendy. But this area hasn't been touched yet. But this
it's got bits and pieces, but I know what you're saying. It's not.
But this reminds me of like a lot of those other areas, what it used to be. And like, I mean, I was in Kalgoorlie last year playing a show, and the locals just kept telling me, oh yeah, a few years ago this was just a bikie haven, and it was just a place where it was just a whole bunch of rough pubs and there was nothing else.
Yeah.
And I went, oh wow. And even today, like driving past, I went, oh, it's a bit like that.
It is. There's up the top end, there's a couple of cafes. There's like this bookshop cafe.
I saw that. Yeah.
That's really good. It's only open like early in the days though, so it's not like an evening kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically the rest of it, you've got some vacant spots, and then a couple of bridal shops, and the good old commercial, and Ginnery's across the road. And yeah, I got in here before 12, and I'm like, geez, I'm a piece of shit. I'm a dad, and I've got like a wife at home, and I'm in this pub. There's like a bunch of guys in here that have been here probably all night. So I'm pretty sure it doesn't close. I don't know. But,
oh, well, I had the same feeling when I walked in, because I didn't know you were around the corner. So when I walked up, and I couldn't see anyone because they were all hiding around the sides. And so when I walked through, there was two girls at the bar, and they sort of just looked at me, and the first thing I thought was, don't judge me. Because it was like probably 2 minutes before midday, and I thought, oh, just give me a couple of minutes before I ordered my first beer. And then I turned around, and there's a few guys like hanging around, and you were here, so I was like, oh, that's okay. I feel better now. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Not that it's ever stopped me in the past, but anyway.
Oh, definitely not. I've been here at 8 a.m. before, a couple of years ago, but it's good to be back. It's good to be back in the old commercial. When I first discovered your podcast, well, discovered it for me. I don't want to be all like, I discovered your podcast. When I first came across it, I was under the impression that you were actually from Wollongong, because it said the band Lord that you're a part of. They're like a Wollongong-based band, or originally. So the majority of that band are all from Wollongong, or? Yeah,
so long story short, the band, so we've got, okay, I'm trying to think of the condensed version of this, although it's a podcast, why not?
Yeah. Spread it out.
Yeah, spread it out, that's right. The band's been around for about 25, 26 years. And,
oh, wow.
The band used to be called Dungeon.
Okay.
So our front guy, Tim, has been in the band since day dot. He formed the band. He's originally from Broken Hill and moved to Sydney 20 years ago or whatever it was. And Dungeon's been around for quite a few years, got a lot of accolades, and toured internationally and did quite well. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of 2005, just due to all these member changes and whatnot, he just decided to change the name. And so he called himself Lord Tim as a bit of a joke at the time, and he decided, I'd do a solo album and just call it Lord, just for the sake of it. And then when it got to the end of 2005, he decided, I'll just call the band Lord. So enter myself, and the rest of the guys who came in at that point in time were in Wollongong. So I was the only guy. I was living in Sydney. I moved down from Brisbane. Mm-hmm. The other three guys were all based in Wollongong. Apart from Tim, the other two guys were born and bred in Wollongong. And Tim had moved there earlier in the piece. So we just always based ourselves out of there. It's just been easy. I just got used to driving down every Thursday from Sydney. It's Thursday night for rehearsals, and we had all our band meetings, and whenever we we promoted ourselves. We called ourselves, a band from Wollongong/Sydney, and then over time we had a few guys come and go, and then it got to a point where Tim was the only one left in Wollongong, but we just went, it's convenient. We won't confuse people anymore, and we'll just keep it as is. So I've never lived in Wollongong myself, but I've been to Wollongong that many times over the last 10 years. It feels like I lived there anyway.
Yeah.
I know where everything is, and if anyone mentions a street, for some reason I know where it is, and and it's crazy. So even just the South Coast in general, just over the years of knowing people, and even when I first moved down here, I spent a lot of time in Wollongong just trying to find my feet and build friendships with people and whatnot. So a lot of the friendships that I built straight away were people in Wollongong. So I found myself down here almost every weekend, and then sort of went from there.
So you would have done a bit of time at the Oxford Tavern then?
Oh,
yeah. It's a great place.
I stay away from the Glass House. So there was always a bit of a rivalry between the clientele at both establishments there, and it got quite ugly at times. We had an ex-bandmate that liked to break glasses. So
oh, really?
Yeah. So that didn't go well with the patrons at the Glass House. So it was
that was pretty big. The whole glass smashing thing, about 7 or 8 years ago. Like there was a guy I went to uni with that got glassed in the face.
Yeah.
And he was in the paper because of it. And I remember seeing him out after the fact, and he'd actually lost an eye. For it.
Oh, wow.
And he was doing like business and law or something too. So, it touches all facets of society, I guess.
It was always an interesting place, and I've got some fond memories and some very not so fond memories there. It was certainly some great stories that have come from frequenting. I can't even talk today. Too many mid-strings. and also going to the Illawarra.
Yep.
And then later in the piece, we started going to the brewery at Wynn Stadium as well.
Yep.
And that was a bit more subdued. It was a bit more calmer there. But
you find the correlation between more seating options and people being a bit more chilled out. It really adds to it, because when you do go to the Glass House, there's a few of these. We're sitting at a bunch of we're sitting on some stools with some round tables, but you've got like 3 or 4 of those round tables and a couple of chairs, but the rest of it you're just standing around and basically peacocking is what what they call it in that Neil Strauss book.
Yep, that's the one.
Well, I don't know. I just found it. I was just like, I assume, because when I've shared like your podcast on the Facebook page, and I'm just like, there's a local Wollongong guy, friggin' Andy, is doing a podcast. He's killing it, friggin' Wollongong.
Yeah, and I haven't made a big effort to try and let people know where I am and whatnot. Not deliberately or anything like that. There's never been a plan, but I've just sort of just run with it, and I've moved to all different areas of Sydney over the last 10 years, and now I live a couple of hours south of Sydney. So for me, whenever I send emails out on behalf of the band or whatever, it's all Wollongong. Our return addresses are all in Wollongong. So it's just, it's fine. It's I know there's been some friends of mine who are born and bred in Wollongong, and they can't wait to say that they're from another part of Australia. They're just like, even if I'm from Sydney, I'll say I'm from Sydney. It's easier to say. Yeah. But for me, if I'm like last year, I was in the States, and I was talking to a bunch of people, and they're like, "Oh, where are you from?" And I go, "Wollongong." And they're like, "Wool, what?" And that got the conversation going, and I mean, I played up on the Australian stereotypes anyway, so that sort of helped get the conversation going. And then you go, it's an hour or so south of Sydney, and like, oh, okay, I know where Sydney is. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. I've seen that bridge in the Opera House that's in pictures.
Yeah, just down the road from there. Yeah.
Oh, well, look, you're right, though, because there are people I've grown up, because I grew up in a town called Dapto, which is it's the cultural
right near Dapto Mall.
Yeah, it's the cultural hub of Wollongong. Yeah. Man, it really is. It's the cultural hub of the universe, really. It's not just Wollongong. So I grew up there, and I moved to Albury when I was 19.
Yeah, right.
So I was doing uni for a short period of time. I didn't finish, but before I moved there, I was all like, I can't wait to get out of Dapto and Wollongong and say that I'm from somewhere else. Yeah. And I moved to Albury, Wodonga and
Yeah.
Lavington Connect. They're a lovely place.
Yeah.
But I just missed Wollongong and Dapto in particular. So after getting back from there, I was...
Never thought I'd ever hear that, missing Dapto.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, well, that was me, man.
Yeah.
That was me. And I still work there to this day for the most part. So
Did you ever go to Soden's in Albury?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We played a gig there once.
well,
yeah.
that's kind of like the equivalent of the Oxford Tavern,
Yeah.
I feel like.
Yeah.
I've stayed there a couple of times,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
Yeah, because there was a friend of mine that had a band, and he played down there years ago, and we stayed there overnight. And then another time, a friend and I were going to Melbourne to see this this hip hop duo called Atmosphere, and we stopped over in Albury and stayed at Soden's for the night before. Is it still open?
Nah, they closed quite a few years ago because I think unfortunately, by the time we worked out about the place, we played a show there, and I think within a few months it had shut down, and it killed their scene because they had a great little music scene there because it was for people that were travelling via van or whatnot instead of flying.
You could stop off there.
Yeah, so you would, if you wanted to hit every spot, you would do sort of Sydney, Canberra, Wagga, Albury, and then start going down to like Bendigo or Ballarat and then into Melbourne. And Soden's was just like the staple. You would just play there, and we got to play there once, and then it was just such a great setup, and the owners were so cool. It was a cool little stage, and we stayed upstairs as well. Yeah. And for us, that's the best. If we can stay at the venue,
place,
it's so good, but it's so dangerous because we get there early, we set up. We relax,
party afterwards,
have
everybody
a few drinks,
party in the hotel room afterwards.
Yeah, before and after, and it just gets a bit messy. But we had such a good time there, and we were ready to go. And when we were planning the next tour to throw Albury in there, and they were gone. And I think now they've got a couple of places that they do bands, but yeah, for a long time there, they didn't have anything, so it was a bit of a shame. But
well, that kind of
area.
whole thing, that whole thing's kind of changed drastically with just touring bands. Well, I feel like as an outsider looking in, it was the same here. Like if you were going to see a band, you'd go to the Oxford, or after the Oxford closed down, there was like the Cabbage Patch or Cabbage Tree, Tree in Fairymeadow. But yeah, now you've got all these kind of sort of bar cafe places that will have these small kind of stage areas that they will host music events in. Does your band, do they do that kind of stuff, or is it a situation where you guys have to have a bigger space?
Yeah, we try. I mean, not that we're this massive band or anything like that, but we'll try and play somewhere that's
you've got a healthy following, though.
Yeah, we do. We do all right. We've been around for a while, which helps us. But we'll always try and find somewhere that has a dedicated stage and existing PA setup and whatnot, just to make it easier. But sometimes we'll, luck of the draw, we'll end up in a place that's a corner of a hole in the wall, and we've got to do some makeshift PA and set it up and just do a bit of a DIY style thing. But and it works. But in Wollongong itself, I think we've played almost every haunt in Wollongong, and
even the updated ones with all these new sort of places.
So I think the only place that we haven't played the Uni Bar, which I know some friends of mine played last night there, but and there's Young and Owl, I think, which is yours and Owls. Yeah. And I've never been there, but apparently it's really small.
Yeah, well, it started out as Yours and Owls, but I'm pretty sure it's called Rad Bar now.
Nah, okay, so it's the same place. Okay,
it is. Yeah, that's the same place, and because Yours and Owls, they're more of a they organise gigs at the Uni Bar and all places around there, I guess like a booking agency at this point. Yeah. They started off, they had their own venue, but they've sort of changed hands, and it's called Rad Bar Cafe or something like that.
I've never been there, but I know a few friends of mine have played there, but the feedback that I get is that it's really, really small.
Yeah, intimate.
So I guess if you were doing like some little novelty acoustic gig or something like that, or something a little bit different, you want that intimate setting, then it'd be quite good. But look, we played the Ox, we've played Cabbage Tree or Cabbage Patch. What is it? What is it?
One of
Tree?
those.
One of them's a toy, one of them's a hotel.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, it's called the Cabbage Tree, but a lot of people call it just the Patch.
The Patch.
I think it was even rebranded as the Patch after a while because people were just calling it that all the time.
And we've played that place in a couple of its different formations over time. We played on like milk crates in the front bar. We played in their back area where there was an actual proper stage, and then we went back into the front bar, and we played at the Grand Hotel. We played a couple of times at Dicey's. Jesus, somewhere else as well.
I was meaning to say, my wife Louise, she has a friend that is a fan of Lord.
Okay, yeah.
And I think while she was pregnant with Lenny, he had actually said to her, "Oh, look, this band's playing in Wollongong at Dicey Riley's. You should really check them out." And it was you guys' band. I think it was like mid 2014, or something like that. And yeah, because when I've told her that I've been in contact with you and listening to your podcast and all of that, and I'm like, oh, that was that band that I was talking about that I think his name's Pete was saying that I should go and go and watch. So it's funny, it's a small world.
It is a small world.
But yeah,
and Wollongong's such a weird place because one of the things that I noticed when I first moved to Sydney and I'd come down to Wollongong on the weekend or whatnot, and I'm walking around the mall and I would just notice so many young dudes, or actually not even young guys, just a lot of guys walking around in metal t-shirts, and I never saw that in Queensland. It was just, you might see the odd Marilyn Manson t-shirt or something like, or a Slipknot t-shirt, but these guys had all these band t-shirts of bands that I loved, and I went, oh wow, there's like a community of these people down here. And
I think it's pretty big. There is quite a bit of people, like the whole like metal, hardcore, punk, like it's vibrant. Like they have cricket teams and all that kind of shit apparently. So
and it's so cool. And a few of my mates are massive cricket fans, and they're probably in some of those teams down here. And it's just, I don't know, it's such a weird thing. Like even now, like we had a band meeting in Wollongong Mall at a cafe a few weeks ago, and between me getting there and parking the car and getting to where we were meeting up, I saw 4 people randomly that just said, oh, hey man, how you going? And whatever. I'm like, oh geez. And so, but you wouldn't see that anywhere else. And it was just this unique place that we didn't really put a lot of effort into Wollongong. Like we play here, but we play here just as much as we play anywhere else in the country. So it's just one of those places on the map that we do when we announce a tour. But for whatever reason, the guys, and maybe it's just because we promote ourselves as a band being from Wollongong, that people probably get a little bit more passionate about it because it's their local boys.
Their local team.
Yeah.
It's like the St. George Illawarra Dragons.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
It's just like, go the Dragons, go Lord.
Yeah, that's right.
So when that Lord chick come out of New Zealand, were you just ready to be like, let's put a contract out on this little harlot? Or
well, I think people started tagging us in posts before I even knew who she was. Actually, I'll tell you, when I did discover her was we were about to play a show in Auckland, and someone got confused and accidentally tagged us in a post or tagged her in a post, and I laughed and I said, and I just really belittled this person, just saying, oh, who's this stupid young teenager or something like move along, push along, like, jog on, and nothing more of it. And someone said, oh yeah, she sings pop music and whatever. She's a bit of a local here in New Zealand. And I just laughed and went, oh, whatever. Mm-hmm. She's got an E on the end, so good on her.
Yeah.
And then I think within like 2 or 3 months, she was just like the biggest thing in the world. And we just
winning Grammys and shit.
Yeah. So now there's this ongoing joke that every time we post something and there's a, on Facebook or whatever, and there's always a lurker or someone who just happens to see one of our posts pop up in their newsfeed who've never heard of us, and they want to throw in a bit of a Lord with the E reference in there, and it's like, oh yeah, I haven't heard of that joke before, but you don't. But at the same time, you don't want to reply back looking like you're getting irritated by the lame joke, because that's internet 101.
You don't want to be like Mark Maron when he gets the shits with people on Twitter and he starts calling them dickheads and all of that. And hey, I'm your biggest fan. What are you getting upset about?
And you don't want that translating into like the intro or the outro of a future podcast episode either.
Yeah. Well, he's renowned for that. Like he'll be talking about whatever existential crisis he's having at that particular time of the day or of his life.
And it's funny because I listen to that sometimes and I cringe, and I think he cops a lot of flack for it. But at the same time, I think he does really well because of it as well. Yeah. Because he's just so honest.
Oh, he's basically just opening up a vein and letting it all freaking hang out for the world to see. Yeah. Like you go through and you're with him through relationship highs and relationship breakups. Like he's had, he was. Like a few years ago, he had his partner at the time was someone who'd listened to his podcast, and he'd told the story about how they met numerous times in his stand up and on his podcast. And they were, getting really serious, and to the point where they were like, "Oh, look, I'm trying to have a child." And then a few months later, it all went to shit. So he's had to, he had no choice but to address it and talk about it on his podcast. But yeah, he was with Moon Zappa, like Frank Zappa's daughter, for a while, and that was a thing, like a reoccurring theme on his podcast.
It's probably. I mean, apart from the guests that he gets on, and that's probably 3/4 of the reason why he does so well.
Yeah.
But I think it's that, I don't know. I sort of look at it as that Woman's Weekly new idea mentality of the goss behind the scenes and whatnot. And he's a personality, somebody that's fairly well known, and he becomes more and more well known as he interviews like these crazy, ridiculous people. I mean, the President of the United States is just like, that's nuts. Next level for him. That
blew me away. Yeah. It really did. Yeah.
And, I mean, the stuff on top of it where he just, he bleeds in his intros and just lets it all hang out. I think he would cop a lot from it, but, he gets enough people talking, enough people tuning in because people love it. People love that stuff.
They respond to it. They do. Well, it's sorry to bring it back to Kanye, but I will. That's the realness, and he does preach the realness.
Yeah.
Have you watched you don't have Netflix or anything like that?
No, I'm holding it for as long as possible because I know my life will end.
Man. Good idea, man. It's a very big time sucker. But his show is on Netflix. I watched it with Louise, and she was like, it's like watching you on TV, and I'm like, what a compliment. Thank you. She might have been alluding to the fact that he's this sort of, neurotic fuckwit in his show. And it's like, it's like watching you on TV. And I'm like, I know, I'm a pretty cool kind of guy, and I do these kind of things, deluding myself, obviously. So.
But I mean, that stuff sort of, it works so well. And I think you have to be very careful. I mean, you have to weigh it up beforehand before you dive into it, because even for me, when I do these podcasts and I'm talking to people, and then sometimes not so much that I'll consciously hesitate, but I almost think, should I say that? Should I make a reference to that? Is that something that's a little bit, not so much that it's too personal or sensitive, but do I want people to see that side of me as well? And then going back to like the musician thing beforehand. So
you want there to be a bit of air of mystery about yourself. Yeah.
But then the more and more I do it, the more that I realize, like, who cares? And I think it becomes better, and I think more and more people can relate to it and enjoy it, and will continue to listen to it if I'm not worrying about that and I just talk.
Well, we're all human too, I think I was conscious of that to begin with as well, because when I first started recording, it was just me and a friend of mine, and me and her were just, we were basically just talking a bunch of shit about, really, really ridiculous things. And then, I had some guys that I'd come around and record with, and we'd get very, very vulgar and try and, make sort of very disgusting jokes, because I was listening to a lot of the Icehouse Chronicles at the time. You listened to that before? And I think it was that and like Kevin Smith's podcasts where he started this internet radio station for a while out of his house. So he'd just wake up, get, blazed to the gills, because he likes talking about getting toasted all the time. And he'd just record with his wife, and he'd basically she'd be there calling him an arsehole, and he'd be talking about like, I earn the money in the house. and I'm like, man, if these people are getting paid to do this, it sounds like an amazing time. So it's been a thing where I've had to, I don't know, figure out which parts of myself I want to share. A lot of it I just do. I obviously don't sort of just talk about everything, but I hesitated for a while with having Louise on, because even though we had a child together and it wasn't a thing where I'm like, oh well, this might not last forever, I'm pretty happy where I am with it. I didn't want to jinx it too. You have her on there and we're like, oh yeah, this is all good, we're married, we have a child, and then something happens and you've the forces of luck and all of that have come into play, but we seem to be going all right. So that's what it's all about.
I mean, I think it's just you got to take that pressure off yourself, because you never know what's going to happen regardless of the circumstances. And I think if it feels right at the timing, you just do it. And I've even said to Jess, my fiance, oh, we should do a podcast together. You can just I can just talk shit and you can just tell me to shut up. And she's like, oh, nah, I don't want to do it. I don't want to I don't want to, I'll be boring. I'm like, don't worry, I'll make you interesting. It's fine. And who knows, down the track, we might end up doing one. But, I was reluctant for a while there because I didn't want people to know about my personal life, or I didn't want people to dig too deeply into it. And it was always a weird thing that I found that when we'd play shows and I'd be like somewhere in, I don't know, Bunbury or whatever, and someone would come up to me and say, "Oh, hey, how's Jess doing?" And I'd be like, "Who the fuck are you?"
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean, Jess?
Have you been stalking my Facebook, motherfucker? What's going on here?
And they're trying to come across with the best intentions. They're just trying to find a human connection.
Connect you on a personal level.
Yeah, but you sort of get taken back and go, hang on, I've never talked, I don't even know your name, and you know more about me. But then I think, well, hang on, I put myself out there and I'm on social media and I tag myself in things, or I get tagged in things, and if we wanted to be private, then we'd be private. We would have made those efforts.
There's a difference. Like, say if someone just rocked up at your house and was just like, "Oh, hey, this is anti-social. All right, let's get social, man. What are you doing? Let's hang out." That's a little bit of a different story, but yeah, like I don't know. It is it is about finding a balance between all of that, and if you are putting yourself out there, I struggle with that myself, and I'm certainly not anybody that's had I've not had like any kind of exposure like you're used to with your band and all of that kind of stuff, but I still I've struggled with that too, because I'm like, Jesus, people like I used to go to school with are going to listen to this and be like, fuck, what's become of him with this rambling bullshit? So, but you get over it.
That's right. And I think as soon as you stop caring about it, things just get so much easier. And I listen to, there's a couple of marketing podcasts that I'll listen to just to try and get ideas for whether it be the podcast or the band or whatever. And the constant message that they always say is that if you're genuine in your approach, then you'll find success one way or the other. So you're going to get more people connecting because people want a human reason to find interest in what you're doing. There has to be a human connection. There has to be a story behind it. There has to be something that they can relate to. And just being big and great, or having, recording music, or saying, or making, taking photos on Instagram and saying that you're living the life or whatever, that might interest people.
Hashtag yoga curves.
So it's like, short term you might win a lot of attention over, but long term you'll lose those people because, it's sort of these peak and troughs with interest and phases that people go through. But there's certain things that you can have through discussion and conversation where you can start relating to people, and it doesn't matter who that person is or what background they are or whether they've got these crazy political views or religious views or whatever. There's still this underlying common ground amongst everybody that we've all got the basic same needs and wants and things that tick. And then on top of that, then we've got our unique personalities and interests after that. So I think for me now with the podcast, and it's also coming out through music and whatever, is that we're just not caring as much and not caring.
That's the way to be though.
And not
really,
caring in the right way, as in, you don't want to, you're not becoming lazy or complacent or whatnot, but you just, you're just not worrying too much about what other people think, and you can be yourself, and the people, you build it and they will come. Yeah,
well, that's sage advice, man. That's very sage advice. What are your 5 top podcasts that you're listening to at the moment?
So, as I mentioned to you earlier on, I've got this, I've created this anxiety for myself because when I discovered podcasts, I just threw myself in the deep end and just started downloading as many as I could from different shows, and then each day I'm like refreshing the feed to see what new ones.
We're getting harassed by this fucking fly, man.
There's one fly. Yeah, he's hating us. Yeah,
or he's our only audience member.
That's right.
It's one of those things.
It's like, I'm on location.
Yeah.
So I'm refreshing every day, and then I'm finding all the new episodes popping up, and so my listener feed is just getting out of control. But the ones that I keep going back to all the time, Rogan's just. It's an easy answer, but it's there for a reason. And
well, he's number one for a reason too, because he's just the way he interacts with people. He does trail off on his little MMA and bow and arrow hunting and Bigfoot kind of things and marijuana, which I'm a fan of him for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's able to put himself aside and get in and talk to people. And get the information out of them.
Yeah, and that's the inspiration behind what I do, and then everything else that I've listened to after that's just further validated the interest that I have in podcasting. But what he does, it's totally the word that came to head was secular, but of course it is. But it's very neutral. It comes in. I mean, yeah, he's got his fight companion podcast, and he's got ones where he'll have something based on MMA or hunting or whatever. And some of them I'll just pass altogether. It's like, I haven't got time to discover this world any more than what I already know. Yeah. But he hasn't got a running theme. He doesn't have a plan. He finds something online that he thinks is interesting, and then he reaches out to that person and just gets them on. And sometimes the conversations go really well, and others he has to wrap them up very quickly because they're not terribly great. He had like that crazy fetish lady on or whatever, and I think
I missed that.
She was one that
was that recently or
a few months ago, and she was like selling used underwear and socks and her poo and all this.
I can imagine him not really responding to that very well.
Well, he was psyched about it because he was talking about it leading up to that particular episode. He was telling other guests saying, I'm going to have this lady on, and he's using her as an example to talk about other things like the crazy things that people are into and what people will pay money for.
Yeah.
And he had her on, and I don't know whether this is the case, maybe they only had an hour allocated, but it got to about 50 odd minutes or whatever, and then suddenly he just started wrapping up really quickly. It was almost like, I think some of her responses he just went, I'm getting a bit bored of you now.
When you hit the when you feel like you're hitting a brick wall with people when they're talking and they're just like,
yeah.
Or, who knows? Because it is a video show, so it'd be interesting to see what the video transcript is. Maybe she was giving him some weird visual signals.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like
he was just. I think there's a couple of things that she came back with where he was just like, yeah, whatever. Like, I'm not connecting with this person. So it was. I mean, it wasn't awkward at all, but just given listening to everything else that he does, it's usually between 2 and 3 hours, and he just started wrapping up very, very quickly. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, all right, I understand why.
I've noticed that when he's got like people he holds in very high regard too, because he doesn't want to take up too much of their time. Yeah. Like every time Andrew Dice Clay is on, it's rare that he's on for 3 hours.
Well, the most recent one was really weird because he had Joey Diaz on there as well, and then Joey just gets up, he goes, I'm out of here.
Yeah,
and
I remember that.
It was just out of the blue, and it was just like typical Joey Diaz. He's just like calling the shots, and then Andrew Dice Clay is like, oh yeah, anyway, and so Joe's like, oh, okay, that's a wrap, and then we'll just leave it at that. But it was so funny because they were just like mid-conversation, and Joey's just like I think Rogan goes, oh, you got to go. And he's like, yeah, I'm out of here.
Yeah, see you later, cocksuckers.
Yeah, see you later, cocksuckers. And they're like just throwing the headphones on the table and walking out, and then it's like, oh, okay, well, looks like that's over.
Yeah. Oh, look, he probably had too many edibles and was just,
he was smashing it.
Out,
that's it. But to go back to your question, Rogan's definitely like one that I always go back to on a daily basis to see who the new guest is, and I'll usually listen to the majority of them. Duncan Trussell is just one that just gets me in tears all the time. His rants at the start where he just gets into this crazy sort of psychedelic rants about God knows what, and even when he advertises his sponsors, he spends a lot of time really making them interesting, and it's kind of cool, and he's just really, really funny guy. I actually saw his live podcast he did in Sydney in December. We were on tour, and we'd announced our tour earlier in the piece, and then he announced his tour dates, and I got so pissed because when he was in Sydney, we were in Melbourne, and when he was in Brisbane, I was in somewhere else, and I couldn't even get to another city to see him. We were somewhere else. But then there was one where he announced the Sunday evening show. It was like a second show, and I was flying in from Darwin, and I literally got in as he started, and it was perfect. It was so good. But But it was really cool. But he's a psychedelic freak, and he loves that sort of stuff, and he's really into like the whole woo-woo sort of Buddhist sort of way of life and whatever. And I've not that I have a massive interest in it, but it's one of those ones where you can sit back, and it's almost like a popcorn thing. You just sit back and watch it, and you watch it unfold. And he has some really interesting perspectives on life and everything, which I agree on certain things, and other things I'm going, well, it's like, that's way out there. It's what I haven't reached that part of my life yet, if I ever will. But Joey Diaz, I listen to his podcast every once in a while. Sometimes I'll give that a break for a while because he just gets a bit a bit out of control.
Yeah.
Especially when Lee Soyat's like just off his face and giggling. And it's just like, I can only.
Well, every time you listen to that, and anytime there's a guest on there and they're talking about it, they're like, you're leading this kid down a wrong path. Like you're turning him into a friggin', because the whole weed culture over in California is crazy. It's mental. It's crazy. So mental, and how they can get all these sort of the edibles and all of that. And they talk about what a normal dosage for people. And that Lee kid, he's taking 100 times what the normal dosage is, and he's within half an hour, 45 minutes, he's just like.
You can hardly get a sentence out. So it's pretty funny, but I guess it's going back to what I said before with I've dived way too deeply into it. I've started getting to the point where I've really started getting picky about the episodes I listen to now, and I'll go, you know what, I can spend 2 hours listening to Lee Syatt dribble and Joey say cocksucker every 30 seconds. And
it is funny in small doses.
And it's good. And he has he's the best storyteller. He has some of the best stories. And I love that. But then sometimes I go, I can listen to that, or I can listen to this other thing that aligns into my interests a bit more at this point in time. So I'll gravitate towards that. But that's a really funny podcast. And then I listen to heaps of, I don't know, I listen to things like there's one called Small Business Big Marketing, which is an Australian podcast. There's a guy in Melbourne. He used to be on the Flight Centre ads. He was the pilot on the ads, the original guy.
Wow.
Tim Reed, and he was he wasn't a real pilot. There's controversy because they used to say that he was a real pilot on the ads.
Yeah.
But he was a marketing manager for Flight Centre. So he this was decades ago, but now he's got his own little marketing thing that he runs, and he's a keynote speaker and whatever. So it's really good for small businesses, but I listen to that to get tips for the band and for the podcast and whatnot. So that's really cool. I'm just trying to think of what else I listen to. I've discovered a lot of Aussie ones now, especially having my own. I'm trying to find ways to not so much build a network, but just try and network with the existing ones that are out there, like yours as well, and just trying to reach out to people and try and find where the community is in Australia, because podcasts in the States are massive, but in
it's
Australia,
not as big here.
No.
You find there's a lot of stand-up comedians that have podcasts. There is a lot of that, and that was kind of the same reasoning I had last year when there was actually when the big Blender Festival was on in Wollongong. It was the Yours and Ours Festival and the Mural Festival, Wonderwalls, and there was all these little workshops happening, and there was a podcasting workshop.
Yeah, right. Okay.
And it was run by a lady called Jen Macy, who is she's a freelance journalist for the ABC, and she's done work with the German equivalent of the ABC. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it starts with a D because of Deutschland. Yeah. And she was running the podcasting workshop, and that was my first effort into trying to branch out and see what kind of people were out there trying to do podcasts. Yeah. I'm just making sure I've still recorded. Oh, that's good, man. We've gone over an hour. But yeah, so then she's done she has done 2 different workshops since. Yep. There was the one in October and then one in December. And yeah, I'm sure that there's probably uni students that are doing podcasts and they've just got their own little world going on there. But yeah, I do a lot of kind of looking around to see if there's more of that happening around here. And that was that group that I recommended that you join, the Wollongong Potties. There's 6 of us in there, because one of the ladies in there, she does a podcast too, but it's one of these kind of informative things, sort of polished radio. Jen does a podcast, or she produces one called Follow the Money, and that's all about economics and all that. They've got 6 episodes. It comes out once a month. That's
the cool thing about it, is that you can talk about whatever the hell you want. And there's no format to it. You can be as polished or as rough as you want. And as I said before, I've got a friend in Melbourne who is a radio disc jockey, and his podcast is so polished. He's got segments and he's got the radio voice, and it's just crystal clear. The production's amazing, and that will appeal to a certain audience. And then you've got other people on the other spectrum that, just like me, just talk and that's it. And it's at times, you're stuttering over words and you say something ridiculous, or, you end up talking away from the mic like that all the time. And I go, oh, geez, I've really got to push that mic close to my face. But it's so good. And it doesn't matter whether it's polished or not. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about finance or you're talking about, music, or you're talking about just life stories or
bowel movements.
The bowel movements, like there's ones that are just drunk dudes talking, and they're hilarious, and they're so good to listen to, and it depends on your mood and what you're interested in, as to what appeals to you. Like there's one that I just downloaded recently, an Aussie one. I've only listened to one episode, but it's called something like the Shite Podcast or something like that. And I think there's some guys from Newcastle or whatever.
Yeah.
And I've only listened to one, but it sounds like a bunch of dudes just sitting around drinking beers and it's cool to listen to when you just want to tune out a little bit and just have a laugh. And it's really, really good. But then I've got other ones where, like the ABC, and it's not the ABC, it's I can't remember what they call, the Whelan Centre or something like that. Mm-hmm. And Andrew Denton's just done a series called Better Off Dead, which is about euthanasia and trying to legalise euthanasia in Australia.
Oh, wow.
Because his father had died about a year or so ago, and he went through that whole period where, if given the choice, he probably would have ended his life a little bit earlier, but they had to watch him suffer right up until the last moment. So he went to Belgium, went to the Netherlands, he went to Oregon in the States, where euthanasia is legalised, and then he went across the country, went to the Northern Territory where it used to be legalised and it was pulled back. And I think it's a 17-part series, and they're about an hour each, and it's intense. It's really well done, and it's very polished, but Andrew Denton's the best anyway when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah,
I actually tried to hit him up to do my 50th episode for my podcast.
Oh, full on.
And he got his publicist or whatever came back and said, "Oh, he's busy." Oh, okay, radio.
Man, props to you for having the balls to try, though.
And this will go back to what you said before about guests and whatnot, and getting the reactions that I get from people. So a lot of people that I know and I'm friends with, I get a mixed reaction. Some will be like, "Hell yes, I'm psyched to do it. I'd love to do it." Any excuse to have a drink and talk some shit for it. Yeah, it's fun. Some people get it and they understand that it'd be a good thing for them to do. Mm-hmm. Other people won't take it seriously and say, "Oh yeah, I'll get back to you." And then you have to keep chasing them. And after a while, I just go, "I'm not going to chase you anymore. If you come back, then we'll talk."
Yep.
And then I'll start reaching out to people that I've never met before. So some people, and that's the best thing about the podcast, because if I emailed someone and said, "Hey, can we just talk for an hour?" They're like, "I'm busy." Yeah. But if I say, "I've got a podcast and this is what I do and whatnot,"
I'll find what you do interesting. I'd like to get you in.
Then they're sort of like, it sounds a little bit more interesting. There's a bit more purpose behind it.
Yeah.
So there's some people that have come back to me and that I've never spoken to before, and they've said, "Yep, absolutely, I'll pencil out some time and we'll have a conversation." And then others, I think I've really gone off the limb, and I've contacted some people that are big philosophers, and they do a lot of writing and whatnot. They've got no connection to my world whatsoever. And part of the pitch that I give them is I explain who I am, and I explain my background, I explain what my demographic and the listeners are, but I also talk about what the benefits could be by them discussing their story or what they're into, their passions or whatever. And I've had some responses back, very polite, but more of a case that you read between the lines going, "Why would I talk to a guy in a metal band? Like, it's just not it. This is not my key demographic. I've got better things to do with my time."
At the rate at which your thing is growing, though, the joke will be on them sooner.
Well, that's what I kind of hope, and I hope over time that I just keep doing and I keep chipping away, and every once in a while I'll have a stab at someone that's way out of my league, because the big thing I keep telling myself is I'll send the email and I'm about to press send. I go, "Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this?" And I send and I go, "Well, what are they going to come back with?"
Worst is they can say is no, really.
The worst is that they just never reply. And then the next best is that they come back and say no, and I've got a bit of a connection there. So they know who I am. They've acknowledged my presence. They acknowledge that there's a guy from Wollongong or Sydney or wherever I'm from, and that plays in a band, and I reference the band. I've got all the links in there. They know this podcast exists, and it might even be a case that in 6 months' time, I've built my momentum enough where my listener base has doubled, and I pop up somewhere else in conversation. They might be speaking to somebody else, or they might see my name somewhere else, and they go, and I can build that link back to somewhere that I've seen that before. So for me, even with a negative response that they can't do it, it's still planting seeds strategically in a way that hopefully over time that I can come back and it'll be easier to try and get them on.
Yeah.
So,
but that's brilliant, That's brilliant.
And jump in. Have
informative and inspiring, right? Sitting right here listening to it. Because for the longest time, I was very intrepid about trying to get a hold of people and talk to them. And when I came across your thing, and I think I listened to the episode about mindfulness and all of that, and I was listening to the Minimalists podcast quite a bit, and so it kind of fit into that. And I think I've sent a message where I was just like, oh look, I like what you're doing, man, and you're from around here, maybe we should talk sometime. And I was just like, probably won't, because you've got a bigger following than me and all of that. And lo and behold, 3 or 4 months later, here we are talking at the commercial hotel with the sounds of pokey machines going in the background.
Yeah, someone's features going off. Good on them. But I mean, that's the coolest thing, and the fact that you even said before that you discovered me through the podcast instead of the band is really, really cool, because for me, long term is that the band will always be there and the band is like its own life, and it does really well. But for me to have the podcast on the side is like, it's almost like a safety net. If something went wrong with the band, or the other guys went, you know what?
Here's your other creative outlet kind of thing.
Yeah, life gets in the way. We have to put it on hold for a year or whatever. I've still got something else that runs with it. And, I've had to feed off the existing fan base that we've created with the band to get momentum and get it started. But then now I've started to see, like yourself, like there's people that have just found their way to the podcast and discovered me through the podcast instead of via the band. And that's really cool. That's awesome. And a big thing of balancing out the guests between music related and then not, like what was his name? Dr. Craig Hassed, who we did the mindfulness episode, and I try to find people that are just really out of the blue, like not expected, especially in my world, where somebody might end up tuning in because they know him. Yeah. And so they might go, oh, that was interesting enough, I might give one more episode a go. And hopefully my episodes aren't boring enough or aren't convoluted or rough enough where they'll actually continue to listen to the podcast long term.
Oh well, look, I've continued to listen, and I'm always listening. I'm always listening through to the end as well, because I'm always waiting for the updates on the podcast party that's happening this week as well. So
on that, I was freaking out the other day because I thought the venue and everything's cool, and we've got this gathering and everything happening, and I thought, geez, does anyone actually know about it? Because I messaged one of my mates. Like one of my best mates, and I'm like, "Oh, you coming next Saturday?" He goes, "To what?" And I went, and I thought, no, I'm not gonna play the game. I thought the podcast party thing I'm doing. He goes, "Oh, was I meant to know about it?" And he goes, "I'm seeing the baby animals," and I'm like, "Oh, well, if you listen to my podcast," and he's like, "Oh, I don't really listen to the end of it. I listen about halfway through and I turn it off." I'm like, "Oh, thanks, mate, thank you." And then I started going, "Oh shit, does anyone listen to the whole thing?
Friends, what's going on? How many of us have them?"
So what I've done is I actually put up an episode this morning that's called May 28, and it goes for 9 minutes, and it's just me talking shit about what it's going to be about, which is really just an excuse to drink alcohol.
You've stayed true to the thing where you're like, I'm only going to be promoting it on the podcast too. So
and I've bent the rules a little bit by putting a post up about it on Facebook, but the information's in the podcast. So really, I'm bending, not breaking, but I'm bending the rules a bit.
Who's going to pull you up on it, really?
It's me.
It's your baby.
I've got to answer to myself, really. That's the only thing.
Don't we all?
But on that really quickly, that whole thing is, it's all about just getting people together and having a drink, and that's it. Like, I don't know whether I'll even pull out my microphones or anything like that. I might not. I was going to do something a bit more extravagant, but then, time gets in the way and I got lazy. But there was one guy that was on either Rogan's or Bert Kreischer's podcast where I can't remember the guy's name, but he has a semi-regular get-together with his podcast listeners, and he just says, "Hey, I'm going to be at such and such hotel on next Thursday night. Come down and we'll have some drinks." And he has this big party, and he does it every 3 or 4 months, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger each time. So I thought, oh, that's really cool. I should start doing that. And I might just do it twice a year, and I'll do it this time, and I might get 4 or 5 people to rock up, or I might get 50 people, or I might get 100 people. And regardless of that, I'll do another one maybe in November, and then I'll do another 2 next year. And
look, I think it's a really cool idea. I've thought about things like that, and there's been podcasts that I've listened to. There was a comic book one from Melbourne years ago. They were called Non-Canonical, and every 50 episodes they'd actually get a live show going.
Yeah, cool.
And they actually got people turning up to it. So you'll probably be surprised with the amount of people that do turn up. Like I'm planning on being there with like wife and baby and their illnesses and all that kind of stuff permitting. But like it's something I've been talking about for weeks now. So,
yeah, cool, awesome.
The Wilburys. Maybe that's them telling us to Oh, good. They've toned it down a bit. Good. I was just like, that's a little bit too loud. Come on, guys.
A little bit of ambience.
Yeah.
Hey, sometimes you got to pay for that music bed, so we just got it for free.
Well, exactly. We're here. We haven't put it on there. So, have you ever done the putting music on to like any of your episodes? Or?
No, when I was first starting the podcast and trying to work out what I wanted to do. Some people had the idea of featuring an artist at the end of the episode, or even if I wanted to be really obvious and shameless, just put a Lord song at the end of the podcast, just a different one each time. There's a couple of friends that I know that do podcasts, and they put one of their own songs at the end of each one. It's a bit of extra advertising.
Yeah.
But I always found myself, when they wrapped it up and that song started, I was pressing stop and I was just moving on. Like I had other things to listen to. So I just, it was one thing, and someone even, like a couple of other friends were putting a music bed under the entire podcast. But
Kevin Smith's Smodcast, they were doing that originally, and it's just too much work.
Too much work. But one guy that I knew was putting like metal songs underneath it, and I found myself tuning my ear to whatever the song was. I'm going, I know that song, and I'm listening to it going, and I'm like, oh, these guys are talking. Oh, hang on, and I've got to tune my ears back into the conversation away from the music bed. And that might be a case that they just didn't mix it low enough. But it was just, for me, I thought it was just too distracting. But for me, it's just too much effort. I think I like the idea of it just being just a conversation, no frills, nothing more than that. I get as fancy as the intro and the outro and a little bit of music, and that's about it.
Is that the intro song? Is that something written for you, or?
Yeah. So what I did, the antisocial thing came from Jess. And Jess would always say that I was antisocial whenever I just didn't feel like talking to somebody, or I was being a little bit of a negative Nancy. She goes, oh, you're so antisocial, thinking that she's all witty, and I used to laugh at it. And then when I was trying to think of a name for the podcast, that just popped up and went perfect. But I thought I'd change it and use that reference for something positive and saying I'm being antisocial by conversing with people and having this podcast.
It's brilliant. It really is, yeah.
There's I can't remember who originally wrote the song, but Anthrax did a cover of this song called Antisocial. And it was like in the early 90s that they recorded. I can't remember. It was originally a punk band that did the song, that wrote the song. But Anthrax made it bigger. Yeah. So what we did is Tim's got his own studio in Crungilla, and I just told him what I wanted to do. He found like a shell of a song through like MIDI or whatever, and then he recorded drums over it, and he recorded the guitars. And then one night after rehearsals, I quickly dropped into the studio itself and just I did the antisocial thing, just like 10 layers of vocals, different.
Oh, so it's actually you.
Yeah, it's me. So I'm like yelling it. I'm doing like a low one. I'm doing one that's a bit oi Sex Pistols sort of thing, and we just blended it all together and made it into what it is. So, and then I've given it to my guy who does the editing, and he's just cropped it a little bit to make it short and sweet. So I've basically got one file that goes for about a minute, and then he's just gone through and taken little sections of it that have become the intro, little sections that become the outro. Then he's got little bits that are just a bit of a guitar riff and drum beat and whatever. So he's taken them out that are little segues into the conversation, and that makes it sound slightly professional. And
it does. It sounds
it makes me sound like I'm legitimate. And I listened to the first one and went, oh, wow, this is like, I sound like I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And it's like,
this could slot right in onto, what you call it, what's the new station, Double J? Or
the Double J, that's right. But, I mean, for me, I'm no good at any of this stuff. Like, I suck at tech. I suck at even practicing my instrument, playing bass or anything like that. I just do the bare minimum at times, and I know my limitations. So I know that if I overextend myself in certain things, I give up. I don't follow through with things. So I have this great idea to do a podcast, and if I want to be a tight ass and do all the editing and everything myself, I know I'll only get so far, and then I'll give myself an excuse to give up. So what I've learnt now is to not stress about that or about my limitations, And then I just started outsourcing everything. So I found the guy who did my website through Airtasker, as well as the guy who does my editing through Airtasker. I pay them a little bit of money. It wasn't a lot, but it's, more than, I mean, I would have saved this money if I did it myself, but I know that I wouldn't be sitting here doing a podcast now if I relied on myself.
Yeah, okay.
And, the recording of the intro and whatever, I lent on Tim. And I just started asking people. And
so Airtasker is where you find these people?
Yeah. Have you heard of?
I think I've heard you mention it on previous episodes, but I've been just learning by the seat of my pants through all of it, like with the editing and sometimes when sometimes when I upload an episode, the sound's a little bit low and everything. I've just with the most recent episode that I've uploaded, like the Comic Gong one, I actually went in and did like one of those YouTube tutorials where they talk about trying to raise the sound levels in GarageBand, because that's where I edited it on. It's all very budget.
And I think it's so user friendly now, and you can find anything out. You can find manuals online. You can find YouTube instructional videos, and it's so good. It's so easy now. And for me, and this is something that I think I personally have to work on over time if I want to ever do anything else in life. But if I can't get an instant result within about 30 seconds, I lose interest. I just can't. I can't get my head around.
I know that feeling.
And I get restless, and then I start looking around and going, "Oh, what else is around that it can distract me from this mundane, tedious task that I've got in front of me?" And Tim in our band hates it because he tries to get me to record stuff from home instead of going into the studio. Because I buy a new laptop, and he takes the laptop off me, and he sets up all like sonar and all the recording stuff on there. He gets the sound card and everything set up. I just, I give him the money, and he just gets it all set up for me. And he's like, "You've got it all. You can record bass for the new album from home. This is what you need to do." And I have a couple of goes, and I play it back, and it sounds like shit. I go, "Hey Tim, when have you got a spare few hours? I'll come down and record at your place. You can just do it for me." Yeah. So, but. Look, I mean, there's a balance, because I think for me, I can't always rely on that. I think at times I have to sort of take a step back and go, you know what, for this afternoon or for the next several hours, I have to get my head around this. And if I can get over that initial hurdle, after that, it's easy, because I'm used to it. I understand. You get momentum, you get a flow, you get a bit of a process happening. And it might be down the track that Damien, who will be listening to this at some stage, my editor, would, he'll, I might end up editing my own podcast like years down the track, and it might just be easier. But the other thing is also time. Like I'll go, okay, well, we're over an hour now, and sometimes I'll do 2 hours or 2.5 hours, or sometimes almost reach 3 hours, and I have the time to record it and set it up, and then I have also the time that I have to factor in to go back and edit it as well. So
and you've got to listen to the whole thing again.
And so that could be an hour and a half podcast times 2, so that's 3 hours.
Yep.
And then going back, and you're not listening it from start to finish, you're stopping, you're going back, you're clipping things out, you're editing things. And poor Damien, the guy who does my editing, he's got to cop that. But I give him a little bit of money for each episode that he does. So it's kind of worth his while. I think I've got a good deal with him. But for me, then I know that time less spent doing that, I can do for something else. And if anything, I think the benefit of letting somebody else do it has given me an opportunity to do more episodes and to talk to more people. So I'm more encouraged to do it.
It's a side, being able to know when to outsource your tasks that you need to be done. That's the sign of like a good manager, really. I think with myself, I've always just been, because it's just been something I've been doing basically on my own. Like I've had people around that want to, jump on and talk a bunch of shit. But when it comes to getting, sorting out where the hosting of, the web hosting is and editing in it and trying to get the sound passable, that's kind of all just fell on me. And I've not really, maybe even not even had the confidence to be like, oh, well, this is a thing that I want to, take seriously. So I will pay someone to do it. I'll just be like, well, I can figure it out. I'll do it like that. So, and it's, and the results are that it's, this, like what I was saying on the intro to the Comic Gong episode, it's a rickety sailboat that is, on the verge of sinking, but somehow doesn't. Well, we do it.
And the problem that I deliberately put on myself all the time is that I'll overcommit to something. So I'll say, like for me, it was like, I'm going to get to 50 episodes by the 1st of June. And it was...
You're coming close.
I'm pretty close. I'm not... Unless I put 5 episodes out within a week and a half. It might happen, but this was like in March, and I was calculating it because I was really finding it difficult to even just keep momentum of 1 a week. And then I thought, geez, I'm going to have to up the ante and do consecutive weeks of 2. And I thought, well, how am I going to do this? But the more that I kept thinking about the 1st of June, the 1st of June, the 1st of June, 50 episodes, and then I'm thinking about, I'm going to have the podcast party on the 28th of May, which will be a few days beforehand. I could make that like a little bit of a pre-celebration for that. Maybe I can like contact all of my media contacts I do with the band and do like a bit of a relaunch for the podcast. And so I'm thinking, the more I kept thinking about it, the more pressure I put on myself. Nobody else has told me that I have to do this.
No.
But I put myself through so much suffering and stress about it. But as a result, as of this morning, I put up my 45th episode and I'm only a few episodes out from it. But I know if I didn't do that, I'd probably be sitting at 30-something now.
Yeah.
And, I just give myself these, that's just a silly little example, but I give myself these little goals that sometimes aren't even necessary. But I know that if I don't do it, I'll just get complacent and just roll the punches and just keep going along. So, it's just, I don't know. It's just, I think, going back to what we were saying earlier before we started recording about getting up early, I just commit myself to things where I get to the point where I stress myself out going, I have to do this, even though I'm the one that made my decision that I was going to commit to it. But as a result, I'm getting up earlier due to it. So it's a bit of a backwards way of trying to find some structure in my life, and I'm sure there's better ways to discipline myself. But
look, man, I find you inspiring, very, very much so. Like listening to your podcast, and then us meeting this afternoon, I was just like, well, it's good to put a name to a face. Like I obviously knew what you looked like because the internet.
Yeah.
And but then I was it's. Coming across your podcast has made me want to do things a little bit different with mine because like I've been going, like I said, maybe even twice on this episode alone. Like I've been going since 2012 2013, and I've only got 74 episodes up at the moment. So I've had quite a few periods of time where I was inactive with it at all, and I thought maybe I wasn't going to do it anymore, but I keep coming back to it, and and then you meet certain people that you're like, well, they inspire you to want to keep going. Yeah. So
and I guess you're
one of those people. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. But I think it also comes back to why we do it. Like, why do you want to do it? And if it's for the love of it, and you really get something out of it, and you love having conversations with people, or with your partner, or with your friends, or whoever it is. And if that's as the least of it and the most of it, and that's it, perfect.
Yeah.
And you can do one once a month, you can do one once a week or once a year, or you can do 20 over a period of weeks and then stop for a bit and then do it again. Like, it's on your terms.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
you do it the way that you want.
You're your own boss.
Yeah. And the only reason that I've been doing it once a week and then now, doing a couple a week is that I made those terms for myself and I stressed myself out because of it. But it's not because there's a rule book that says that if you want to have a podcast, you need to do this, this, this. It's just that for me, I have these goals or these visions of where I'd like to go one day down the track. And in my own head, I've made up these silly little rules that I hope are going to be the things that keep the podcast going the right direction.
Yeah.
But, if I missed a week, I'd be kicking myself and going, you idiot, like, why'd you miss it? You're losing momentum. You're going to lose your audience. They're all going to disappear. But that's my own self-defeating.
You build that up in your head.
Yeah.
Well, look, I uploaded an episode last week and I hadn't uploaded one for, I think, almost 3 weeks.
Yeah, I noticed.
And I'd had a few hiccups. Like I had an issue with, like I recorded, it was like just before I started the new job, and I was recording an episode with a guy that's local, and we'd got the whole episode done. I hadn't actually pressed record.
Oh.
And that's the second time that happened, because I did it with Cocoon as well. I've pressed pause and then not pressed play again.
Oh.
So that kind of threw me off. And life has a way of just happening,
And I think you got to bring yourself back and just try and calm down with it all and just go, you know what, like, why am I doing this? Am I doing this is it a bit of fun? Is it for me to personally get something out of it? And I mean, that's what I have to sort of rein myself in every once in a while and go, you know what, this is not a job. I'm not making money out of it. And I always throw in the yet. And I hope that one day I might make a little bit of coin just as a bit of pocket money on the side. But you know, I'm not making any money out of it. It's something that I've created as a hobby.
Well, you spend money basically
doing
it.
Yeah. And it's a hobby and it's something I love. And, you know, if I have a conversation with someone and it doesn't go to plan or it sounds like shit afterwards and there's all this interference or somebody's been talking away from the mic or I have or whatever, I still have that conversation. It might not be documented and everyone can hear it, but no one knows that I've had that. No one else knows I've had that conversation apart from the person across from me. So It's not that I've set these expectations. Because I've always been worried where I'm like talking to somebody or I'm doing my outro, I'm like, and next week I'm going to be doing an interview or a conversation with such and such, so stay tuned. I never do that out of paranoia that something's going to go haywire or it's not going to record or it's going to sound like shit or I'm going to make a fool of myself. But it's just, I don't know. I think it's all about just taking the pressure off and just, if you love doing it,
having some fun with podcasting, man.
That's it.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah. And then hopefully, as you know, if the podcast world explodes and more people tune in and listen and enjoy it, then hey, you know, if you can get a bit of success and get a bit of coin from it, and
everyone's a winner then. I've heard that it's only like, and this might even be in America too, that there's like less than 10% of people listen to podcasts. Yeah, which is. It's crazy to think because you've got like Serial and all those things that are, you know, the so-called biggest podcasts on the planet. And really it's it's not really even reached critical mass yet.
No. And I mean, what have you got in the United States? 300 million or something like that. So it's still a lot of people listening, but percentage wise, it's still the minority. Yeah. And here in Australia, I mean, you know, what have we got?
25 million or something like that. Yeah,
we've got no one here, and there's even probably an even smaller percentage of people that listen. So for me, like one of the things that I started doing was putting all of my episodes onto YouTube, and it's just audio with one still image, and that's it. So it's not for visual benefit. It's more of a case that some people, it's just too much effort to click more than once on something. Mm-hmm. And I've found that through trying to promote the band.
People at work, they'll just open a new tab and they've got their earphones in or whatever, and they'll play it in the background while they're doing their work.
But if I try and convince someone to open up a podcast app and then explain how that works, and then just search for the podcast and then download the episode, and
put it onto your phone or whatever, all
that stuff. It's, you know, some people will go through the steps, but most people won't, and it's just too much effort. But if there's a YouTube link, people are already familiar with YouTube, so I find that that's a good way to get people into podcasts and get them interested and understand just what the format's all about, and just hearing people talk backwards and forwards, and then they go, oh, it's interesting enough. I might actually make the effort now to download.
Does it cost money?
No.
Like with YouTube? Yeah, that's something that I've hesitated to do it because like I'm already paying for the hosting with Libsyn and with SoundCloud. Yeah. Because I noticed a few podcasts that I was into had SoundCloud accounts and they just do it like that, but you've got to pay.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I can't stretch myself that thin when, you know, paying all this kind of shit. So
I do my podcast hosting through Blubbery or whatever it's called, which I think I'm paying way too much. I might have to change it at some stage down the track, but it does its job. And then I paid for Omni, which is like a couple of bucks a month. It's not much, but I don't see much of an impact from that. So we'll see what happens down the track with that one. But Stitch is free, which I don't get a great deal from, but it's just it looks good to say I'm on another platform.
Yeah, and it's another way for people to find it.
Yeah, and YouTube's free. So YouTube, the only thing you got to do is just put together, you know, a movie file, an MPEG or something like that, just to put up there, and you know, just combine your audio with one visual picture, and that's it. So it's it's pretty simple, and I think the tagging system works a lot better on there as well. So you can, if I have the dude from North Lane on, I put North Lane in the tags, and so North Lane gets searched so much on YouTube. So then
when eventually that comes up, suggested posts.
So it's a lot more of an accessible way to find the podcast that way. So it's just another way to blend it out in more areas. Like I get a bit OCD with stats and whatnot. So when YouTube's separated, so I'm not getting the downloads from YouTube, But that's one of the personal things I have to get over with my crazy OCD head.
Yeah, I try not to check the stats too much because it does my head in, especially when it's SoundCloud and it's like, your track has been played 4 times in the last 7 days, and I'm like, this is really worth the money. But yeah, I find like with Libsyn, you get some fairly comprehensive statistics over that as well.
Yeah,
and that's the majority of where I get a lot of my listeners from. So. How long have we been going for?
Yeah, for a while.
An hour and 40. Yeah. Oh. Look, I think we should probably start wrapping it up because what's the time now? You've got places to go this afternoon.
I've got some places to go, but
I really need to urinate soon. So
me too, but probably not together. Or we won't play sword fights anyway.
No, well, look, we've got equipment that needs to be looked after in the meantime, so we can tag team it.
Yeah, sounds good.
But no, look, thank you so much for coming and meeting me here in this this dingy commercial hotel that I love so much.
Well, I always love going to a pub for the first time. I always had this fantasy that I'll have this massive. Well, I've got a Sydney pubs guide from like 1996 or whatever. And every time I go to a pub in Sydney, I get the highlighter out and I highlight it. But I've always had this fantasy that I've got one for Australia, and every time I go to a pub, I can go, been there. Yeah. I've had a beer in that place, so it's cool. It's awesome that I get to come to a new pub.
Ticking it off the box, man.
That's
it. You can play some pokies after we finish.
Awesome.
Oh, sorry, I dropped that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. There you go. Cheers.
Oh, we're recording a podcast. Yeah.
Just wrapping up.
Podcasting. Did you want to say hello? The podcast is actually called. It's a joint venture right now. This is Andy. He's got a podcast called Andy Social, and my podcast is called Kembla. So, do you want to say hello?
Welcome to Kembla.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
First time here. It's great. Yeah.
We've enjoyed ourselves. We're about to have one now because we're wrapping up. Oh, no. Cheers. Oh, all right. I've got Carlton Draft, and what were you?
Oh, what did you get me? Yeah.
Mid-strength.
Yeah. Thanks,
Cheers
mate.
for that.
Thank you.
There
you go.
Yeah.
Local treatment for the publican.
Yeah, it helps to be out there and be seen doing things sometimes.
Absolutely.
Doesn't it?
We'll put a few commercial hotel plugs. Well, we already have. So, hey, come down to the commercial hotel. Have a.
And yeah, when I was saying dingy, I meant it in the most loving of ways as well. I don't want to come off like an asshole because I've been here a few times and it's great.
I think that's a wrap. We'll have a last beer and thanks so much, man.
Thank you, Andy.
This will go up on mine as well. Likewise, yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, yeah. I always get weird when I'm about to turn it off, so I'll just be like, I'm going to press stop.
It's like how do you say goodbye?
Yeah,
like this. Stop. Cheers, everyone. Thank you so much. If you want to contact Kurt, I'll have links on andysocial.net. You can find Kembla on iTunes and Stitcher and SoundCloud. It's pretty easy to find, but I'll have all the direct links on andysocial.net, so you can find it there. I really, really encourage you guys, as I always say, to reach out to the guests that do feature on the show. So in particular for this episode, Kurt, let him know what you think. Kurt's doing great things with his podcast, and I mentioned to him, I can't remember if I mentioned it in the episode itself, but certainly afterwards, it's really quite reassuring to see other Australians and other people embrace the podcast world, because for me, it's still very new for me, and I've always seen podcasts as being something that's more popular in the States than it is here in Australia. So it's good to connect with people locally that are also doing it. And it's inspiring, it's motivating, and wants me to continue to push this one further and further and work harder on it and get more people on it and keep the momentum going. So I hope that it sparked a little bit for some of you to potentially think about doing your own down the track as well. You never know, there might be something of interest that you like doing that you could do a series of podcast episodes about. But anyway, andysocial.net's the best place to find it all. If you want to help me out, and I'll love you a long time, you can rate and review the podcast on iTunes. You can share links from Stitcher and Omni, and YouTube's a great spot as well. Any way to like and comment and anything interactive with the episodes and the show has a massive impact on the listenership. And I've mentioned it before, many occasions, a lot of the people that are tuning into this podcast are direct referrals, and the word of mouth thing's such an important part. So keep up the great work and the support. It means a hell of a lot to me, and I'll do my best to repay it for you guys with getting more and more guests on in the future. So enough rambling. It's late and I need a tea, and we'll speak soon. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
You're ready, social.